Hey folks, it's Kozzi here, and I just had an interesting idea for a video that I wanted to add on to the end of my film control series, and I hope to introduce for some of my other videos. The notion being is this. Often we have this idea of we'd like to turn back time. We'd like to take another look at what happened in the past and to try and reassess what went on, what went right, what went wrong, and have a second chance. You know, we're stuck with a whole bunch of pop media representations, Share Turn Back Time, or one of my wife's favorite films from the late 90s being Sliding Doors. That idea that if you managed to catch the train, what would have happened and how would things have changed? And I had the realization in looking back through my videos, getting them ready to put up on YouTube, that my play isn't as tight as I ever thought it was. And I think there's a degree of that that's probably because I'm trying to commentate and also worry about broadcasting at the same time, so I'm not paying as much attention to a game as I'd ordinarily like to. But also a part of it is just this is a learning opportunity for me to get better and to understand some of the mistakes that I can make in my assumptions. And so I thought it would be fun to put out some videos where I actually look back on that, find one of those key moments, and basically ask the question of how could this have gone differently? And I think the idea video for this is one that happened in Game 4 for this film control, which I'll just play through now. So I was setting up my board, and my opponent is playing some relatively benign 1-power creatures. And I had the plan of getting ready to play my Amber Acolyte and my Plague to try and get as much value as possible, especially when I saw him dropping multiple 1 toughness creatures. I even went so far as to lose some power inefficiency here to try and set the snare to get as much value as possible by playing my Feln Stranger instead of a 3-drop, such as the Acolyte that would have gotten itself a free creature. The idea being that I wanted my Plague to really try and devastate him, to really try and wipe out his board. Here my opponent Thrugan throws me off a little bit. He doesn't keep developing his board for me to get my Plague value. Instead he schemes trying to find something better. And we get up to this really pivotal turn 4 where I have a series of decisions. I can either play my Plague, get my reward, I can play my Amber Acolyte, still get a slight amount of value, I could play my Stonescar Magnus and just keep developing and keep waiting to see how greedy I can possibly get with the Plague. And I think, to be honest, I got a little bit myopic. I just got so focused on being able to play the Plague in one of the next 2 or 3 turns that I stopped really thinking about any alternatives that could have gone on here. And so when he finally plays his extra piece of power, the Wisdom of the Elders to draw again, and then in the next turn that's coming up he's going to be playing a creature, I just snapped on the Plague. I took my 1 piece of damage, and I think I thought too much like an aggressive deck. I was trying to get in my damage, I was worried about getting my 4 damage in. But here I had some interesting choices, because after drawing the Herald Song, and I'll just pause the video here, I could have attacked in with my Magus. I don't think he would have blocked for a second. I would have gotten 2 damage in, because if he would have blocked with his Spider, it would have been a valuable 2 for 1 for me, and I would have had the Plague at a later stage in the game when it could have been more value. I was worried about playing the Amethyst, Acolyte, or the Plague. They were the 2 choices in my head at that point in time, or to play my Herald Song for the land. And I didn't want to play my Acolyte because I felt like, again, it just wasn't enough value. I wasn't happy with it. And so I feel as though my propensity, my desire to get aggressive led into a pretty bad decision of just wiping the board and going forth. The interesting thing, excuse me, is I think I got punished for this pretty severely. After this resolves, after I attack through, we see that my opponent's next play is to play another creature and to keep developing his board. And so I'll just let the video run through so we can see it here. And I think it's an interesting question to ask, what would I have done if I would have known that that was his next turn? I definitely knew that he was going to play a 3 or a 4 drop, but would that have changed my decision? And when I was watching through, I realized that I'd really missed a great opportunity here. If I would have just played my Herald Song and kept digging and found other things to do, and at this point, if we would have argued that I hadn't have used my Plague, so instead he still would have had his Spider, he still would have had his Vulture, so there would have been an extra 2 creatures on the board, and he would have been on 23 instead of 21, and I would have also been on 21 instead of 22. I think this turn could have been dynamite. What I could have done is I could have attacked in with my Stonescar Magus again. There's no threat really of him blocking, because if he blocks, I'll be getting basically his 3-drop, which is amazing value for me. And once it gotten through, this would have been the spot where I could have played my Plague. I then would have had drawn deeper into my deck. I still would have killed his creatures. I only would have taken 1 damage. And if he would have sat back and done nothing, or indeed if I wouldn't have attacked with my Stonescar Magus at all to make sure that he couldn't have gotten in, then the very next turn I could have played my Amethyst Acolyte and killed the creature. And that would have been amazing value here for me. I would have been deeper into my deck. I would have killed his 3-drop, and all in exchange for 1 life. And so it's interesting when you look back on that. And some people say, yeah, okay, Kozzi, you're being a bit rough on yourself. How realistically can you expect to know that that would have been an X2 creature that he would have played on his next turn? And the answer is I wouldn't have known. But when we play collectible card games like this, when we play games like Eternal or Magic the Gathering, I think we always need to be playing to maximize our outs. And oftentimes I think we can only think about our outs as in what keeps me alive in this game, rather than what could my opponent possibly do that I can reduce its value of as much as possible. And in that scenario, whilst I got a 2-for-1 with my Plague, I basically exchanged one of the best cards in my deck for 2 cards that didn't really matter. And in as much as that, I really shortchanged myself. And it wasn't just the card for card value that I think I missed out there. I think I also really missed out on positioning in the game. And whilst there were situations that looked as though they decided the game a lot more, I think that this tempo setup was really pivotal, and it was a really huge mistake that I made. So there you go. I find that this is really interesting looking back at how the game could have changed. Granted, there were a lot more decisions that I could have chosen to pick on as well, but this is just one that really, really struck me as a subtle decision that I think if I would have taken differently, yeah, I think I probably would have been up to 3 wins instead of 2 at this stage. So let me know what you think. Personally, I think I'll be doing this anyway, because I think it's a really interesting thought exercise that you don't get to do unless you record your videos or you have someone watching. So I want to take advantage of it. And you never know. Perhaps it might help you guys too. And this could be one of those moments where you could have watched the video or not, and your life could have gone in a very different direction. And if you think that's contrived, it's just about as how silly I think it is that walking into a train or not could make a feature film. So there you go. Have a good one, folks, and I'll talk to you later.